The morning bells of lauds drift across the valley like whispered prayers, their bronze voices carrying on the crisp February air as Brother Thomas opens his eyes to the soft gray light filtering through his small window. The stone walls of his cell hold the night's chill, but something has changed in the quality of the silence, something that speaks of winter's gentle loosening grip. He rises slowly, his woolen habit rough against skin that has grown accustomed to the monastery's austere comforts. The flagstones are cold beneath his bare feet as he moves to the window, pressing his palm against the thick glass that frames his view of the garden below. What he sees draws a quiet breath of wonder from his lips. The garden spreads before him like an illuminated manuscript written in frost and shadow, its geometric beds outlined by low stone walls that disappear and reappear beneath patches of snow. But there, along the southern wall where the winter sun has lingered longest, he can see it, the faintest suggestion of green, tender shoots no bigger than a child's fingernail pushing through the white blanket with patient determination. Brother Thomas pulls his cloak around his shoulders and makes his way through the corridor, his footsteps echoing softly in the pre-dawn hush. Other brothers move like shadows to the chapel for morning prayers, their faces serene in the lamplight, but Thomas feels called to a different kind of worship this morning. The heavy wooden door opens with a gentle creak, and he steps into the garden's embrace. The air is sharp and clean, carrying the scent of snow and stone and something else, something indefinable that speaks of earth stirring, of roots beginning to stretch and yawn beneath their winter sleep. His breath forms small clouds that dissipate quickly in the still air as he walks the familiar paths, his feet finding their way even in the dim light. The herb beds lie before him like sleeping children, each one carefully planned and tended through the seasons that have passed. Here is the thyme bed, its woody stems poking through the snow like the fingers of sleeping hands. There, the lavender rows stand in neat formation, their gray-green leaves dulled by frost, but still holding the promise of summer's purple spires and honeyed fragrance. Brother Thomas kneels beside the rosemary patch, brushing away the snow with gentle fingers to reveal the evergreen needles beneath. He presses a sprig between his palms, releasing that sharp, invigorating scent that speaks of Mediterranean hillsides and ancient wisdom. The plant has weathered this winter well, its roots deep and its faith unwavering. As he walks deeper into the garden, the light grows stronger, painting the snow with pale gold and rose. The fountain at the garden's heart stands silent, its basin filled with ice that gleams like polished crystal. But around its base, where the stone retains some memory of warmth, he discovers the miracle he has been hoping for: tiny crocus shoots, brave and green, pushing through the earth with an urgency that makes him smile. The bells ring again, calling the community to prayer, but Brother Thomas remains in his garden cathedral, surrounded by walls of stone and sky. He moves slowly among the beds, checking each section with the careful attention of a shepherd counting his flock. The mint bed sleeps deeply still, its roots curled tight against the cold. The sage stands gray and patient, its leaves furled like tiny scrolls waiting for spring's warm fingers to unfurl them. In the corner where the wall turns east, he finds the first true surprise of the season: a cluster of snowdrops, their white bells nodding gracefully above heart-shaped leaves of the freshest green. They seem to glow in the growing light, these harbingers of hope, these gentle rebels against winter's long reign. Brother Thomas kneels before them as he would before an altar, his hands folded in quiet gratitude. The sun climbs higher now, sending long fingers of light across the garden beds. Where it touches the snow, tiny droplets form and fall, the first whispered conversations between winter and spring. The sound is barely audible, a soft pattering like distant rain, like the turning of pages in an ancient book. Brother Thomas rises slowly, his knees stiff from the cold stone, but his heart warm with the promise he has witnessed. Around him, the monastery begins to stir with the gentle rhythms of monastic life. Soon, his brothers will finish their prayers and move to their daily tasks. Soon, the kitchen will fill with the scent of bread and simple soup. Soon, the copyists will bend over their manuscripts, and the groundskeepers will tend to their various charges. But for now, in this moment suspended between winter and spring, Brother Thomas stands in his garden sanctuary, watching the first thaw write its story in drops of water and whispers of green, knowing that in a few short weeks, this place of silence will burst into the quiet celebration of new life, patient growth, and the eternal cycle of seasons that marks the passage of monastic time. The pale March sun climbs slowly over the monastery walls, casting long shadows across the garden where winter has held its quiet reign. Brother Thomas emerges from the stone archway, his brown habit rustling softly against the morning air. In his weathered hands, he carries the familiar weight of his wooden-handled spade, its blade worn smooth by countless seasons of faithful service. The earth lies before him, dark and rich beneath patches of melting snow. It breathes with the promise of spring, exhaling the sweet scent of thawing soil and dormant roots stirring to life. Brother Thomas pauses at the edge of the first garden bed, closing his eyes to feel the subtle shift in the wind that speaks of changing seasons. Young Brother Marcus approaches quietly, his footsteps muffled by the damp earth. He moves with the careful reverence of one still learning the sacred rhythms of monastic life, his hands folded within his sleeves as he watches the older monk begin his work. "The soil tells us when it is ready," Brother Thomas says softly, his voice barely disturbing the morning stillness. He kneels beside the bed, taking a handful of earth between his fingers. The soil crumbles gently, neither too wet nor too dry, releasing the earthy fragrance of countless seasons of growth and rest. With deliberate slowness, Brother Thomas begins to turn the soil. His spade enters the earth with a whispered sigh, lifting and folding each section with the tenderness of a mother tucking a child into bed. The dark earth reveals itself layer by layer, rich with the decomposed leaves of autumn and the patient work of earthworms through the winter months. "See how the earth welcomes the light," he murmurs to Brother Marcus, who draws closer to observe. All winter, it has been gathering strength, composting last year's gifts into nourishment for what is to come. From the compost pile at the garden's edge, Brother Thomas retrieves handfuls of the previous year's treasure. Decomposed apple peels from the monastery kitchen, fallen leaves from the ancient oak trees, kitchen scraps that have transformed into dark, crumbling gold. He scatters this bounty across the turned soil with the reverence of a priest distributing communion. The morning air grows warmer as the sun climbs higher, and Brother Thomas removes his outer robe, working now in his simple tunic. His movements remain unhurried, each turn of the spade a meditation, each handful of compost a prayer offered to the coming season. Sweat beads gently on his forehead, but his breathing remains steady and calm. "Brother Thomas," Marcus ventures quietly, "how do you know the soil is truly ready?" The older monk pauses, leaning on his spade as he considers the question. A robin lands nearby, pecking at the freshly turned earth for emerging insects, unafraid of the two quiet figures in brown robes. "The earth speaks in whispers," Brother Thomas replies, his eyes twinkling with gentle wisdom. "You learn to listen with more than your ears." The soil should feel alive in your hands, neither clinging desperately nor falling away like dust. It should smell of awakening, not of sleep. He demonstrates, taking another handful of the prepared soil and holding it out to Marcus. "Breathe deeply." "What do you notice?" Marcus closes his eyes and inhales. The scent is rich and complex, carrying hints of moisture and warmth, of countless cycles of growth and decay transformed into new possibility. "It smells hopeful," he says finally, opening his eyes. Brother Thomas nods approvingly. "Oh, yes. Hope is the fragrance of soil ready to receive new life." As the morning progresses, they work together in comfortable silence. The sun climbs higher, warming the stone walls that shelter their garden from harsh winds. Somewhere in the monastery bells, Brother Benedict rings the hour, the bronze tones floating across the garden like a blessing. The soil grows softer and more welcoming with each careful turn of the spade. Brother Thomas shows Marcus how to work the compost evenly through the earth, creating a rich tapestry of nourishment that will sustain the vegetables and herbs they will soon plant. In 2 weeks, perhaps 3, we will sow the first seeds, Brother Thomas says as they near the completion of their work. But for now, we let the earth rest in readiness. Sometimes the most important work is the waiting. As the monastery bells ring the call to midday prayer, the 2 monks gather their tools. The garden bed lies before them, dark and receptive, breathing quietly in the March sunshine. Tomorrow they will prepare another bed, and another, each one an act of faith in the turning seasons. Brother Thomas places a gentle hand on Marcus's shoulder as they walk toward the chapel. Remember, he says softly, we do not make things grow. We simply prepare the way for growth to happen. The morning light filters through the stained glass windows of the chapel, casting gentle pools of amber and rose across the worn stone floor. Brother Thomas moves quietly down the center aisle, his sandaled feet making the softest whisper against the ancient stones. In his weathered hands, he carries a simple wicker basket, filled with small cloth packets that rustle ever so slightly with each careful step. The packets contain the promise of the coming season seeds collected from last year's garden, carefully dried and stored through the long winter months. There are seeds of basil and rosemary, their fragrance still faintly detectable through the fabric. Seeds of carrots and beans, humble yet essential. Seeds of marigolds and sweet peas, destined to bring color and joy to the monastery walls. At the altar, Abbot Benedict waits with serene patience, his lined face peaceful in the morning light. His voice, when he speaks, carries the weight of countless springs, countless blessings bestowed upon countless seeds. Creator of all growing things, he begins, his words echoing softly in the vaulted space, bless these seeds that they may bring forth abundance in their season. The ceremony is simple, ancient in its simplicity. Each packet is lifted gently, held in cupped palms as the abbot's blessing settles over them like morning dew. Brother Thomas feels the weight of tradition in this moment, remembering the generations of monks who have performed this same ritual, this same act of faith in the turning of seasons. When the blessing is complete, Brother Thomas carries the consecrated seeds through the cloister, past the covered walkways where other brothers move about their morning tasks. The air is still crisp, but there is something different now, a subtle warmth in the sunlight, a softening in the wind that speaks of winter's loosening grip. The greenhouse stands at the garden's edge, its glass panels catching and holding the precious warmth of the strengthening sun. Inside, Brother Marcus tends to seedling trays, his young hands gentle as he mists the tender green shoots that have already begun their journey toward the light. Brother Marcus, Thomas calls softly as he enters the humid warmth of the greenhouse. Come, let us begin the spring sowings. They work together in comfortable silence at first, preparing seed trays with rich, dark compost that smells of earth and possibility. Brother Thomas opens the first packet basil seeds, tiny and black as peppercorns. These must wait, he explains, letting a few seeds roll in his palm. Basil is tender-hearted, afraid of the cold. We sow them now in the warmth, but they will not venture outside until the soil has truly warmed. Brother Marcus nods, absorbing this wisdom with the quiet attention of a student who knows that knowledge, like seeds, must be planted carefully to grow well. And the lettuce, he asks, indicating another packet. Ah, lettuce is brave, Thomas smiles, pressing the tiny seeds gently into prepared rows. Lettuce enjoys the cool of early spring, will even tolerate a light frost. We sow it now and again in 2 weeks and again after that. Little and often this is the gardener's way. The greenhouse fills with the gentle sounds of their work, the soft scraping of tools against terracotta pots, the whisper of seeds being scattered, the gentle splash of water from the watering can. Steam rises from the warm, moist soil, creating an atmosphere that feels separate from the world outside, a pocket of spring nestled within winter's final days. As they work, Brother Thomas shares the knowledge passed down through generations of monastery gardeners. How to read the soil's readiness by its scent and texture. How to judge the right depth for each seed by its size, as deep as the seed is wide, no more. how to space the plantings so that each seedling will have room to reach its full potential. Gardening, he says, carefully covering a row of spinach seeds with the finest layer of compost, is an act of faith. We plant in trust, knowing that forces beyond our control will determine the harvest. Yet we do our part with care and attention, preparing the way for growth. Brother Marcus spreads his palm over the newly planted trays, as if offering his own quiet blessing. The seeds lie invisible beneath the dark soil, yet both monks can sense their potential, their readiness to respond to warmth and moisture and time. Outside, the bell tower chimes the hour, calling the community to prayer. Brother Thomas closes the final seed packet, brushing the soil from his hands with satisfaction. The day's sowing is complete, the covenant between gardener and earth renewed for another season. In the greenhouse's gentle warmth, the future garden rests in patient silence, waiting for the miracle of germination to begin. The first drops arrive just after dawn, tapping gently against the ancient stone walls of the monastery like whispered prayers. Brother Thomas pauses in the arched doorway of the greenhouse, listening to the soft percussion that has awakened the April morning. The sound begins as scattered notes on the glass roof above, then grows into a steady, rhythmic symphony that will accompany his morning work. Steam rises gently from the warming earth as the rain meets sun-heated soil. The monastery garden stretches before him, a patchwork of freshly turned beds where yesterday's seeds now rest beneath their protective blanket of dark loam. The rain knows exactly where to go, seeking out each buried promise of life with patient certainty. Brother Thomas steps into the greenhouse, his worn leather sandals silent against the stone floor. The air here is warm and humid, thick with the green scent of growing things. Rows of wooden tables stretch the length of the building, each surface crowded with small terracotta pots and shallow planting trays. Tender seedlings emerge like tiny green flags of hope, their first leaves catching the filtered light that streams through rain-streaked glass. He moves between the tables with practiced grace, his brown woolen habit brushing softly against the edges of the planters. In his weathered hands, he carries a simple copper watering can, its surface green with age and use. The water inside catches the rhythm of the rain above, creating small ripples that mirror the larger dance happening on the glass ceiling. The tomato seedlings stand barely 2 inches tall, their stems thin but determined. Brother Thomas studies each one with quiet attention, noting which plants seem strongest, which might need extra care in the days ahead. His fingers, gentle despite their calluses from years of garden work, brush away a few specks of soil from the delicate leaves. The touch is barely perceptible, like a blessing offered in silence. Above, the rain intensifies, drumming more insistently against the glass. The sound creates a cocoon of peace within the greenhouse walls, muffling the outside world until only this moment exists. Brother Thomas finds himself moving in time with the rhythm, his steps slow and measured as he progresses from table to table. There is no hurry here, no urgency beyond the patient needs of growing plants. He lifts the watering can and tilts it carefully over a row of pepper seedlings. The water falls in a gentle arc, each drop finding its way to thirsty roots below. The soil darkens and releases its earthy perfume, mixing with the green scent of the plants and the clean smell of rain-washed air. Brother Thomas breathes deeply, filling his lungs with this incense of the natural world. In the corner of the greenhouse, a collection of herb seedlings reaches toward the light. Basil plants no larger than his thumb display their first true leaves, each one perfectly formed and already fragrant to the touch. Nearby, rows of parsley and chives stand like miniature forests, their green abundance promising flavor for the monastery kitchen in the months ahead. The rain continues its gentle percussion overhead, creating patterns of shadow and light as it streams down the glass in rivulets. Brother Thomas pauses in his work, setting down the watering can to simply stand and listen. The sound is hypnotic, constant yet ever-changing, like a meditation made audible. He closes his eyes and feels the peace of this enclosed world settle around him like a comfortable shawl. When he opens his eyes again, his gaze falls upon a tray of lettuce seedlings that seem to have grown visibly since yesterday. Their leaves are pale green and delicate, like small hands reaching upward in gratitude. Brother Thomas smiles, an expression of quiet joy that transforms his weathered face. This is the miracle he witnesses daily, the patient persistence of life, the way seeds trust in darkness before emerging into light. He returns to his gentle tending, moving now to check the bean plants that climb thin wooden stakes. Their first tendrils curl and reach, searching for support as they begin their upward journey. Brother Thomas adjusts a stake here, loosens compacted soil there, his movements efficient but unhurried. Each plant receives his attention as if it were the only one in the greenhouse. Outside, the April rain continues its blessing, feeding the newly planted garden beds, while Brother Thomas nurtures the seedlings that will soon join their companions in the earth. The greenhouse holds them all: the monk, the plants, the sound of rain, the smell of rich soil in a moment of perfect quietude. Time moves differently here, measured not by clocks but by the slow unfurling of leaves and the gentle rhythm of water returning to the earth from which all life springs. The morning sun climbs steadily over the monastery walls, casting long golden fingers across the garden beds where Brother Thomas stands with his hands pressed gently into the warming soil. The earth beneath his palms holds the promise of another season, another year of growth and abundance. Around him, the entire community begins to gather, young novices with eager faces, elderly brothers whose weathered hands know the rhythm of countless plantings, and those in between who carry both wisdom and strength in equal measure. The air carries the sweet scent of possibility, mingling the last cool breath of night with the growing warmth of day. Dew still clings to the carefully prepared rows, each bed marked with simple wooden stakes bearing the names of herbs and vegetables written in Brother Thomas's careful script. Basil, sage, rosemary, and thyme. Carrots, onions, lettuce, and beans. Each name a promise, each row a prayer offered to the coming months. Brother Francis approaches with a wooden tray filled with tiny seedlings, their delicate leaves bright green against the dark soil nestled around their roots. The tomato plants have grown strong in the greenhouse windows, their stems sturdy despite their tender age. Behind him, Brother Michael carries a collection of small hand tools, trowels worn smooth by decades of use, their metal surfaces gleaming in the morning light. The earth is ready, Brother Thomas says quietly, his voice carrying the contentment of one who has felt the soil's readiness in his very bones. She has warmed through the night, and the danger of frost has passed. Today, we begin again. The monks spread across the garden with the unhurried precision of a well-rehearsed dance. Some kneel at the ends of rows, carefully lifting seedlings from their trays and settling them into holes that seem perfectly sized for their small root systems. Others walk the paths between beds, scattering seeds with practiced motions, a gentle shake of the hand, a covering of earth, a light patting with weathered palms. Brother Augustine, the oldest among them, works alongside young Brother Peter, just months into his novitiate. The elderly monk's movements are deliberate and economical, each gesture born from 70 springs in this same garden. He shows the young man how to cup the seedling gently, how to judge the depth by the span of his fingers, how to firm the soil without compressing it too tightly. "Feel here," Brother Augustine murmurs, guiding Peter's hand to the base of a transplanted pepper plant. The soil should embrace the roots like a gentle handshake, secure but not crushing. The plant must be able to breathe, to stretch, to find its way into this new home. The sun climbs higher, warming the backs of the working monks and drawing the first hints of moisture from the freshly watered earth. Steam rises in barely visible wisps, carrying with it the rich scent of soil and growing things. Somewhere in the herb beds, Brother David hums a quiet plainchant, the melody weaving through the garden like an invisible thread connecting each worker to the next. Near the monastery wall, where the climbing beans will eventually reach toward the sky, Brother Joseph and Brother Mark work in comfortable silence, their movements synchronized as they stretch lengths of twine between wooden poles. The trellis take shape slowly, methodically, each knot tied with the same careful attention they bring to their prayers. When the bean plants begin to climb, they will find strong support waiting, a framework built with patience and foresight. The hours pass like water flowing through cupped hands, present and precious, impossible to hold but perfect in their passing. Trays of seedlings empty one by one, their contents now settled into the warm embrace of the garden beds. Packets of seeds, carefully saved from last year's harvest, surrender their treasures to the waiting earth. Each tiny seed carries within it the memory of countless seasons, the wisdom of adaptation and growth passed from generation to generation. As the morning moves toward midday, Brother Thomas stands at the garden's center, his hands dirty with good soil, his heart full with the satisfaction of work well done. Around him, the newly planted beds stretch in neat rows, each one a testament to faith in the future. The seedlings stand straight in their new homes, their leaves already turning toward the sun with an instinct older than memory. The great planting is complete, but it is also a beginning. In the weeks to come, these small plants will send their roots deeper into the monastery earth, will unfold new leaves toward the warming sky, will begin the ancient work of transforming sun and soil into sustenance. And the monks will tend them with the same gentle attention they have brought to this work for generations, understanding that in caring for the garden, they care for something far greater than themselves. The bells of midday prayer begin to sound across the valley, calling the community back to the chapel, back to another rhythm in their day of worship and work. But the garden remains, blessed by their labor, ready for the quiet miracle of growth that will unfold in the days ahead. The first light of May morning filters through the ancient stone archway as Brother Thomas steps into the monastery garden, his sandaled feet silent on the dew-dampened path. The air carries a sweetness that speaks of transformation, of winter's long sleep finally giving way to spring's gentle awakening. He pauses at the garden's heart, breathing deeply, letting the cool morning air fill his lungs with the promise of the day ahead. Above him, the apple trees in the monastery orchard have burst into their full glory. Pale pink blossoms cluster along every branch, their delicate petals catching the golden light that slants between the leaves. Each flower is a small miracle, perfectly formed, its center dusted with the finest pollen that catches the light like tiny stars. Brother Thomas walks slowly beneath these flowering branches, his weathered hands clasped behind his back, his eyes drinking in the beauty that surrounds him on every side. The herb garden beyond the orchard shows its own quiet magic this May morning. The lavender plants, still small and silver green, have begun to show their true character. Their narrow leaves release their distinctive fragrance at the slightest touch, a scent that speaks of summer afternoons and peaceful meditation. Nearby, the rosemary bushes have grown stronger through the winter months, their needle-like leaves now dark green and aromatic, ready to season the simple meals that sustain the brothers through their days of prayer and contemplation. Brother Thomas kneels beside a row of young sage plants, their soft, gray-green leaves emerging tender and perfect from the dark earth. His fingers, gentle and sure from decades of this sacred work, touch the soil around their roots, feeling for the right balance of moisture and warmth. The earth is alive beneath his touch, rich with the decomposed leaves of autumn and the careful compost the brothers have prepared through the patient months of winter waiting. A soft humming fills the air, growing stronger as the morning progresses. The monastery's beehives, positioned carefully at the garden's eastern edge, have awakened to the abundance of May blossoms. The first scouts emerge, their wings catching the light as they begin their ancient dance among the flowers. Brother Thomas watches as they move from blossom to blossom on the apple trees, their movements purposeful and unhurried, gathering nectar and pollen with an efficiency born of countless generations of instinct and wisdom. The stone walls that surround the garden are warming in the strengthening sun, their gray surfaces beginning to radiate a gentle heat that will nurture the climbing roses planted at their base. These roses, still weeks away from their summer flowering, show fresh green growth along their thorny canes, new leaves unfurling with the soft shine of youth. Brother Thomas runs his fingers along one of these walls, feeling the ancient stones that have witnessed so many springs, so many cycles of growth and rest, of planting and harvest. In the vegetable beds, neat rows of seedlings push through the carefully prepared soil. Lettuce plants spread their tender leaves in perfect rosettes, their edges still soft and sweet. Bean plants climb their wooden supports with determined grace, their heart-shaped leaves reaching always toward the light. Tomato seedlings, recently transplanted from the monastery's simple greenhouse, stand straight and strong, their stems thick with the promise of summer's abundance. Brother Thomas moves through these beds with the slow, measured pace of one who understands that time in the garden cannot be hurried. He adjusts a stake here, waters a particularly dry patch there, his movements economical and sure. Each plant receives his attention, his quiet blessing, his careful tending that speaks of decades spent in service to this living sanctuary. The morning air grows warmer as the sun climbs higher, and with the warmth comes an increase in the garden's gentle activity. More bees emerge from their hives, their humming creating a peaceful background music that harmonizes with the soft sound of Brother Thomas's footsteps on the gravel paths. Birds call from the fruit trees, their songs clear and liquid in the still air, celebrating the abundance that surrounds them. As the chapter of dawn prayer approaches, Brother Thomas takes one final walk through his beloved garden. He pauses beside the herb spiral, where chives show their first purple flowers, tiny globes of color that will feed both the monastery table and the visiting bees. His eyes trace the familiar paths, noting each change, each small miracle of growth that has occurred since yesterday's tending. In this place of ancient stone and patient earth, of careful hands and faithful seasons, he finds the deep peace that comes from participation in the eternal cycle of growth, rest, and renewal. The bell tower's gentle chime calls him to prayer, and Brother Thomas turns toward the chapel, carrying with him the fragrance of apple blossoms and the quiet satisfaction of work done with love, in a garden where time moves to the rhythm of seasons and silence holds the deepest truths. The silver light of the full moon bathes the monastery garden in an ethereal glow, transforming familiar pathways into something otherworldly and serene. Brother Thomas steps quietly through the wooden gate, his sandaled feet making barely a whisper against the cool stone path. The night air carries a symphony of gentle sounds, the distant hoot of an owl, the soft rustle of leaves in the evening breeze, and the melodic trickle of water from the central fountain. In the moonlight, every plant seems to hold secrets. The herb beds take on mysterious shadows, their familiar forms becoming sculptural in the pale illumination. Thomas moves with practiced silence, his brown robes blending seamlessly with the darkness between the silvered patches of light. He carries a small clay oil lamp, though he hardly needs it. 40 years of tending this garden have taught his feet every stone, every turn, every gentle slope. The night-blooming jasmine releases its intoxicating fragrance into the still air, a perfume so rich and sweet it seems almost tangible. Thomas pauses beside the climbing vine, breathing deeply, letting the scent fill his lungs and calm his spirit. These nocturnal flowers understand something about beauty, that it need not announce itself with bright colors and bold displays. Sometimes the most profound gifts come wrapped in subtlety and shadow. He kneels beside the rose beds, running his weathered fingers gently along the stems, checking for the telltale stickiness of aphids or the irregular bumps that might indicate disease. The roses, dormant now in the cool night air, seem to be resting, gathering strength for tomorrow's sun. A few late buds catch the moonlight, their petals still tightly furled, waiting for dawn to coax them open. The vegetable garden tells different stories in the darkness. The broad leaves of the squash plants spread like protective hands over the dark earth, while the bean vines twist upward along their wooden stakes, reaching always toward the light, even in sleep. Thomas checks the base of each plant, feeling for the moisture level in the soil, ensuring that the evening watering has penetrated deeply enough to sustain the roots through the warm night ahead. From somewhere in the orchard comes the gentle splash of a small creature drinking from the irrigation channel, perhaps a hedgehog or a field mouse, drawn by thirst to this sanctuary of water and abundance. Thomas smiles in the darkness, pleased that his garden provides not just for the brothers' table, but for all the small lives that call this peaceful place home. The lavender beds seem almost to glow in the moonlight, their silver-green foliage creating pools of luminescence along the garden's edge. Thomas brushes his hand lightly across the fragrant stems, releasing clouds of scent that mingle with the cooler night air. In a few weeks, these plants will be heavy with purple flower spikes, ready for harvest and drying. But tonight, they rest in quiet anticipation, storing sunlight in their aromatic oils. A gentle breeze stirs the leaves of the apple trees, creating a soft susurrus that sounds almost like whispered prayers. The young fruits, still small and green, hang heavy with promise on the branches. Thomas checks several trees for signs of pest damage, running his fingers over the bark, feeling for the small holes that might indicate the presence of boring insects. All seems well. The trees stand strong and healthy in their neat rows, their roots drinking deeply from the rich monastery soil. The herb spiral draws him next, its carefully planned succession of plants creating a living mandala in the moonlight. Thyme cascades over the edges of the raised beds, its tiny leaves releasing their sharp, clean scent at his touch. The sage plants stand tall and dignified, their broad leaves soft as velvet in the darkness. Each herb holds its own quiet power: rosemary for remembrance, basil for blessing, chamomile for peace. As Thomas completes his gentle rounds, he pauses at the garden's heart, where the stone fountain sends its endless stream of water skyward before it falls back to earth with a sound like distant rain. The water catches the moonlight, fracturing it into countless tiny diamonds that dance and disappear. He dips his hands into the cool pool, feeling the silk of the water slip between his fingers, a benediction of simplicity and grace. The monastery bells chime the hour, midnight has passed, and the deepest part of the night embraces the garden. Thomas extinguishes his lamp and stands for a moment in the complete darkness, letting his eyes adjust to see by moonlight alone. The garden breathes around him, every plant exhaling the day's stored warmth into the cooling air. In this sacred silence, surrounded by the gentle life he tends with such devotion, Brother Thomas finds the deep peace that comes only in these quiet hours, when the night garden reveals its most tender mysteries to those who move through it with reverence and love. The first light of June touches the monastery garden with fingers of gold, painting dewdrops like tiny prisms across the lavender hedges. Brother Thomas steps quietly along the gravel paths, his worn sandals making the softest whisper against stone, still cool from the night. The air carries the deep, drowsy fragrance of herbs at their peak, rosemary releasing its piney sweetness, thyme offering up its earthy perfection, and everywhere the honey-scented promise of lavender ready for harvest. Summer has settled into the garden like a contented cat, bringing with it the fullness that Brother Thomas has watched grow from spring's tentative beginnings. The vegetable plots stretch in neat rows, their leaves broad and glossy with health. Tomato vines climb their wooden stakes with determined grace, small green fruits already forming in protective clusters. The bean poles stand like gentle sentries, wrapped in spiraling vines that seem to grow taller each passing day. But this morning, Brother Thomas has his mind on the herb garden, where months of patient tending have brought the plants to their moment of perfect readiness. He carries a shallow willow basket, its weave darkened by years of service, and a small pair of pruning shears that catch the early light. Behind him, Brother Marcus follows with quiet steps, eager to learn the ancient rhythms of harvest that have blessed this monastery for generations. "The herbs speak to us," Brother Thomas murmurs, his voice barely louder than the morning breeze. "They tell us when they're ready through fragrance, through the way they hold themselves in the light." He pauses beside a magnificent bush of rosemary, its needle-like leaves silver green and thick with aromatic oils. "Touch here gently," He guides Brother Marcus's hand to the topmost branches. Feel how firm they are, how the scent clings to your fingers. The younger monk nods, understanding passing between them without need for many words. This is more than gardening. This is a conversation with creation itself, a partnership between human hands and divine abundance. Brother Thomas demonstrates the proper angle for cutting, taking sprigs just long enough to dry well but short enough to encourage new growth. Each snip is deliberate, respectful, accompanied by a whispered word of gratitude. The lavender requires different attention. The purple spikes stand tall and proud, humming quietly with the early activity of bees who have claimed this corner of the garden as their kingdom. Brother Thomas waits patiently as a particularly industrious bee finishes its work on a nearby flower before he begins cutting. "We harvest in partnership," he explains softly. "Never in competition." The basket fills slowly with aromatic treasures. Long stems of lavender, their colors ranging from deep purple to palest lilac. Sprigs of rosemary that release clouds of fragrance at the slightest touch. Bundles of thyme, their tiny leaves dense with the concentrated essence of summer itself. Each plant gives generously, and Brother Thomas takes only what is offered, leaving plenty for continued growth and for the creatures who depend on this garden sanctuary. As the sun climbs higher, the two monks retreat to the covered drying shed adjacent to the herb garden. Here, wooden beams wait to receive their fragrant burden. Brother Thomas shows Brother Marcus how to tie the herbs in small bundles, not too tight to prevent air circulation, not too loose to risk scattering. Each bundle hangs upside down from the rafters, creating a living library of scents that will preserve the garden's gifts through autumn and winter. The work continues in peaceful rhythm. No words are necessary as they move between cutting and bundling, between garden and shed. The monastery bells mark the hours with their bronze voices, but time seems suspended in this green world where summer unfolds its abundance with generous hands. Other brothers pass occasionally on the main path, nodding quiet greetings, but the herb garden remains a pocket of concentrated serenity. By midday, when the sun has climbed high enough to concentrate the essential oils too intensely for ideal harvesting, the morning's work is complete. The drying shed hangs heavy with the promise of winter teas, healing balms, and the simple pleasure of herbs that will carry summer's memory through the darkest months. Brother Marcus stands among the hanging bundles, breathing deeply of air thick with layered fragrances. "This is how we store sunshine," Brother Thomas says quietly, his weathered hands gentle as he adjusts a bundle of thyme. Each dried leaf holds light, holds warmth, holds the peace of this moment. The afternoon stretches ahead, promising rest in the garden's shade, perhaps quiet reading under the apple trees, certainly the deep satisfaction of work completed in harmony with creation's own perfect timing. The garden settles into summer's drowsy contentment, its pathways dappled with shade and sunlight, its air sweet with the lingering perfume of herbs and the distant promise of evening's cool embrace. The morning mist still clings to the stone walls of the monastery as Brother Thomas makes his way along the familiar gravel path to the healing garden. His sandaled feet move quietly across the cool stones, each step deliberate and reverent, as if approaching a sacred altar. And perhaps in its own way, this corner of the monastery grounds truly is a sanctuary, a place where the divine art of healing flourishes in neat, carefully tended rows. The healing garden occupies the most sheltered corner of the monastery's grounds, protected by high stone walls that have weathered countless seasons. Morning sunlight filters through the ancient oak trees overhead, casting gentle shadows that dance across the herb beds like fingers of light blessing each precious plant. The air here carries a different quality than the rest of the gardens, richer, more complex, filled with the mingled fragrances of dozens of medicinal herbs that have grown in this very soil for generations. Brother Thomas pauses at the garden's entrance, his weathered hands clasped behind his back, surveying the neat rows with the satisfied gaze of a shepherd counting his flock. Each plant here serves a purpose beyond mere beauty, though beauty they certainly possess. The silvery green leaves of sage catch the morning light like small mirrors, while the delicate purple flowers of lavender sway gently in the barely perceptible breeze. A small group of visiting monks from a distant abbey approaches along the path, their brown robes rustling softly against the herbs that spill over onto the walkway. Brother Thomas turns to greet them with a warm smile, his eyes crinkling with the joy of sharing knowledge that has been his life's work. For 47 years, he has tended this garden, learning from Brother Augustine before him and Brother Marcus before that, in an unbroken chain of wisdom stretching back to the monastery's founding. "Welcome, brothers," Thomas says, his voice carrying the gentle authority of decades spent in contemplation and care. "You stand now in what we might call the pharmacy of our humble community, though our medicines come not from bottles and powders, but from the earth itself, blessed by sun and rain and tended by faithful hands." He leads them first to a raised bed where chamomile grows in abundant clusters, its small white flowers with their golden centers resembling tiny suns scattered across a field of green. "Here grows our most cherished friend of the restless soul," Thomas explains, kneeling beside the plants with surprising grace for his 73 years. Chamomile, the earth apple, as the Greeks named it, has soothed countless brothers through difficult nights. A simple tea from these flowers brings peace to troubled minds and rest to weary bodies. The visiting monks lean closer, some making notes on small parchments, others simply breathing in the sweet, apple-like fragrance that rises from the disturbed plants. Brother Thomas plucks a single flower head, rolling it gently between his fingers to release its essence. "The secret," he continues, "lies not just in knowing which plants to use, but in understanding when they are at their strongest, how to harvest them with respect, and how to prepare them with prayer." Moving deeper into the garden, the group passes beds of echinacea, their bold purple petals radiating from dark centers like tiny fireworks frozen in time. "These beauties," Thomas says, gesturing toward the sturdy plants, "strengthen the body's defenses against illness." Brother Matthias, our infirmarian, prepares tinctures from their roots each autumn to help us weather the winter months. The indigenous peoples of distant lands have used these flowers for generations beyond counting, a reminder that healing wisdom springs from many sources. Near the garden's heart stands a particularly ancient section where gnarled rosemary bushes grow alongside neat rows of thyme and oregano. The Mediterranean herbs seem almost to shimmer in the morning light, their gray-green leaves releasing sharp, clean fragrances that speak of sunny hillsides far from this northern monastery. "These traveled here as seeds in the sandals of early pilgrims," Thomas tells his listeners, running his fingers along a sprig of rosemary. They remind us that healing, like faith itself, knows no boundaries of nation or language. The garden tour continues in unhurried contemplation, past beds of calendula with their golden faces turned skyward, beyond the mint patch that grows with such enthusiasm it must be contained within buried stones, through sections where feverfew and valerian grow in careful balance. Each plant has its story, its purpose, its place in the great tapestry of healing that Brother Thomas has helped weave through the decades. As the morning progresses and the visiting monks prepare to continue their journey, Brother Thomas stands once more at the garden's entrance. The mist has lifted completely now, revealing the full glory of this living pharmacy in the clear light of day. His hands, stained green from a lifetime of such work, rest peacefully at his sides as he watches the last visitor disappear around the corner of the chapel wall. The healing garden settles back into its eternal rhythm of growth and rest, tended by hands that understand that true healing begins not with the taking, but with the patient giving of time, attention, and love. The summer sun rises early over the monastery walls, casting long golden fingers across the garden paths where Brother Thomas walks with quiet purpose. The air is thick with warmth and the sweet perfume of climbing roses that have transformed the ancient stone walls into living tapestries of pink and cream. Each bloom seems to hold the morning light, petals soft as silk-catching dewdrops that sparkle like tiny diamonds before the sun claims them. The vegetable beds stretch before him in neat, abundant rows, heavy with the promise of the season. Tomato vines climb their wooden stakes, laden with fruit that ranges from deep emerald to the first blush of red. Brother Thomas moves slowly between the plants, his weathered hands gentle as he tests the weight of each tomato, feeling for that perfect moment when firmness gives way to the yielding softness that speaks of ripeness. The leaves release their distinctive earthy scent as he brushes past, a green fragrance that mingles with the sweetness of nearby strawberry beds. In the herb garden, basil plants have grown tall and full, their broad leaves a rich, dark green that seems to absorb the sunlight. He pinches a sprig between his fingers, releasing that unmistakable aroma that will soon fill the monastery kitchen with the essence of summer. Nearby, the lavender bushes hum with the contented drone of bees, their purple spikes swaying gently in the warm morning breeze. The sound is hypnotic, a natural lullaby that seems to slow time itself. Brother Thomas kneels beside a row of lettuce, his movements deliberate and meditative. Each head is examined with the careful attention of a craftsman, checking for the perfect balance of tenderness and substance. The outer leaves rustle softly as he works, creating a whispered conversation between gardener and garden. The earth beneath his knees is warm and soft, still holding the moisture from yesterday evening's gentle watering, and he can feel its life-giving richness even through the worn fabric of his habit. The bean poles stand like silent sentinels, their charges climbing skyward with determination that speaks to something eternal in the cycle of growth. The pods hang heavy and full, some ready for harvest, others still tender and small, promising future abundance. Brother Thomas moves along the row with his basket, selecting each pod with the practiced eye of seasons spent in this sacred space. The snap of each stem is crisp and clean, a satisfying sound that echoes the snap of kindling in the kitchen fire where these beans will soon simmer. Along the garden's eastern wall, the climbing roses have reached their magnificent peak. Clusters of pale pink blooms cascade down the ancient stones, their fragrance so rich it seems almost visible in the warm air. Some petals have begun to fall, creating a natural carpet of pink and white that releases fresh waves of perfume with each step. Brother Thomas pauses here often, not just for the beauty, but for the profound sense of gratitude that such simple magnificence evokes. These roses have grown here for generations of monks, their yearly cycle a reminder of continuity and the patient rewards of faithful tending. The morning advances slowly, as all mornings should in a place touched by such peaceful purpose. Brother Thomas works without hurry, his basket gradually filling with the garden's generous offerings. Summer squash gleam golden in the dappled shade of broad leaves, their smooth skins still cool from the night. Carrots pull from the earth with satisfying resistance, their feathery tops still fresh with dew, orange roots bright with promise for the evening meal. In the quieter corners of the garden, where stone benches invite contemplation, the air moves differently. Here, beneath the spreading branches of an old apple tree, the light filters down in shifting patterns that dance across the worn stones. The tree's fruit is still small and green, months away from the crisp sweetness of autumn, but already showing the promise of harvests to come. Brother Thomas often sits here in the heat of midday, when the sun makes even the most dedicated gardener seek shade, listening to the gentle rustle of leaves and the distant sound of chapel bells marking the hours. The soil tells its own story of abundance, rich and dark from years of careful composting and patient cultivation. Earthworms move through its depths, their quiet work essential to the garden's prosperity, while above ground, butterflies visit the marigolds and nasturtiums that border each bed. These flowers serve both beauty and purpose, their bright faces cheerful companions to the more practical vegetables, their presence a reminder that function and beauty need never be strangers. As the morning light grows stronger and the shadows grow shorter, Brother Thomas completes his gentle harvest, his basket now heavy with the garden's gifts. The summer abundance surrounds him like a living prayer, each plant and flower a note in the quiet symphony of growth and gratitude that defines this sacred space where seasons turn and silence teaches wisdom. In the furthest corner of the monastery garden, where the carefully tended beds give way to wildness, Brother Thomas finds himself drawn to a place that exists beyond the reach of human intention. Here, in this forgotten meadow, the brothers have made a sacred pact with nature to leave well enough alone. The morning sun filters through the canopy of ancient oak trees that border this sanctuary, casting dancing shadows across a tapestry of wildflowers that seems to shift and breathe with each passing breeze. Queen Anne's lace nods gracefully beside clusters of purple asters, while goldenrod sways in golden waves that catch and release the light like captured sunbeams. This is not the ordered beauty of the herb garden or the precise rows of the vegetable plots, but something wilder, more mysterious, a place where nature has been given permission to dream its own dreams. Brother Thomas settles onto a weathered wooden bench that has been placed at the meadow's edge, its surface smooth from decades of contemplative hands and patient watching. He moves slowly, deliberately, understanding that this sacred space requires a different kind of presence, not the active engagement of the gardener, but the quiet receptivity of the witness. As if summoned by his stillness, the butterflies begin to appear. First comes a monarch, its wings like stained glass windows painted in amber and black, drifting on invisible currents with a grace that speaks of ancient migrations and timeless purpose. It settles on a nearby milkweed plant, wings opening and closing in a rhythm as steady as prayer, as natural as breathing. Brother Thomas watches, his own breath slowing to match the gentle pulse of those orange wings. He thinks of the mystery contained within this small creature, how it carries within its delicate body the memory of journeys spanning continents, how it navigates by stars and magnetic fields beyond human comprehension, how it transforms from caterpillar to chrysalis to winged miracle through processes that remain, despite all human knowledge, fundamentally mysterious. A tiger swallowtail joins the monarch, its yellow wings striped with bold black bands that flutter like banners in the gentle breeze. It moves from flower to flower with purposeful grace, each landing a small act of communion between creature and bloom. Brother Thomas notices how the butterfly's proboscis uncurls like a delicate watch spring, probing deep into the heart of each flower, participating in an ancient dance of giving and receiving that requires no instruction, follows no written rule. Soon, painted ladies arrive in small clouds of orange and black and white, their wings catching the dappled sunlight as they spiral upward in playful aerial ballets before settling among the asters and goldenrod. Brother Thomas marvels at how each species seems to know its place in this living tapestry, how the monarchs prefer the milkweed and lantana, how the swallowtails seek out the purple coneflowers, how the painted ladies dance among whatever blooms catch their fancy. As the morning progresses and the sun climbs higher, more visitors arrive in this wild sanctuary. Bees drone contentedly among the native sunflowers, their legs heavy with pollen, their presence a reminder that beauty and utility need not be separate things. A hummingbird appears like a small emerald miracle, hovering at the trumpet vine that has wound itself around an old fence post, its wings beating so fast they become invisible, its body suspended in space as if by pure intention. Brother Thomas finds himself entering a state of profound stillness, his awareness expanding to encompass the entire meadow, the whisper of grass in the breeze, the distant sound of water from the monastery fountain, the soft drone of insects going about their ancient business. He understands in this moment why the brothers chose to leave this corner untamed, unmanaged, free from human improvement. There is a wisdom here that cannot be captured in any gardening manual, a knowledge that flows not from books but from the deep intelligence of the earth itself. In allowing this space to remain wild, the monastery has created room for mystery, for the kind of learning that happens not through study but through patient observation, through the simple act of witnessing life unfold according to its own perfect timing. As a cabbage-white butterfly lands briefly on his folded hands, its touch as light as a blessing, Brother Thomas closes his eyes and listens to the symphony of this untamed place. The rustle of native grasses, the gentle hum of beneficial insects, the whispered secrets that pass between flower and butterfly, between earth and sky, between the tamed garden and the wild heart that beats at its center. In this moment of perfect stillness, surrounded by creatures that know nothing of human worry or striving, Brother Thomas discovers once again that some of life's deepest teachings come not from what we do, but from what we choose to leave undone. The pre-dawn air carries a coolness that will soon vanish with the rising sun. Brother Thomas moves quietly through the monastery corridors, his sandaled feet making soft whispers against the worn stone floors. The bell tower shows the faintest hint of gray light touching the eastern horizon, and he knows this precious coolness will last only another hour, perhaps two at most. The heavy wooden door to the garden opens with its familiar creak, releasing the night's accumulated fragrances into the corridor behind him. Lavender and rosemary, mint and thyme, all seem to exhale their essences more freely in these quiet hours before the heat arrives. Thomas breathes deeply, letting the garden's peace settle into his bones as he has done every morning for 23 years. His first destination is always the well. The rope feels smooth and familiar in his hands as he lowers the wooden bucket into the cool depths. The splash echoes softly up from the darkness below, followed by the gentle sound of water finding its level. When he draws the bucket up, droplets catch the growing light like scattered pearls, each one perfect and ephemeral. The water is shockingly cold against his fingertips. Even in July's grip, the well maintains its steady coolness, drawing from springs that run deep beneath the monastery's ancient foundations. Thomas fills the first of several buckets, the water so clear he can see straight to the bottom, where smooth stones rest like sleeping fish. The herb garden requires his attention first. The tender basil leaves droop slightly from yesterday's heat, their green surfaces dusty despite his evening watering. He moves between the raised beds with practiced grace, tipping water from his wooden dipper with careful precision. Each plant receives exactly what it needs, no more, no less. The thirsty earth drinks gratefully, releasing that distinctive scent of dry soil meeting water, a smell that speaks of life renewed. His footsteps create a meditation rhythm as he walks the familiar paths. Bucket to well, well to garden, garden to well again. The wooden handle grows smooth and warm in his palm, worn by countless morning journeys just like this one. The weight of the full bucket feels purposeful, meaningful. This simple act of carrying water becomes a prayer in motion. The vegetable plots stretch before him in orderly rows. Tomato plants heavy with fruit hang their heads in the building heat, their leaves beginning to curl inward for protection. Thomas creates small pools around each plant's base, watching the water soak slowly into the thirsty earth. The soil is darker here, enriched by years of compost and careful tending, and it accepts the water readily, channeling it down to eager root systems. Near the monastery walls, where the morning shade lingers longest, the lettuce and delicate greens await their turn. These plants cannot tolerate direct sun once the day grows warm, so Thomas has constructed simple screens of woven branches to filter the harsh light. The screens cast intricate shadow patterns across the beds, creating a patchwork of light and protection. As he works, the sky continues its slow transformation from gray to pale gold. The eastern wall of the monastery begins to catch the first direct rays of sunlight, its ancient stones warming quickly in the growing heat. Thomas can feel the change in the air, that subtle shift from coolness to warmth that signals the beginning of another scorching July day. The flower beds require gentler treatment. Roses trained along the chapel wall receive a thorough soaking at their roots, the water pooling briefly before disappearing into the thirsty soil. Marigolds and nasturtiums, hardy souls that they are, still benefit from deep watering that will carry them through the heat of midday. Each flower seems to lift slightly as the cool water reaches its roots, petals straightening with renewed vigor. By the time Thomas completes his circuit, the sun has cleared the monastery walls entirely. Golden light streams across the garden, illuminating every leaf and flower with crystalline clarity. The temperature begins its steady climb, but the plants are ready now, deeply watered, their roots cool and satisfied, prepared to face another day of midsummer heat. Thomas returns his bucket to its place beside the well and stands for a moment in the growing warmth. The garden settles into the rhythm of another July day, leaves turning to follow the light, flowers opening to meet the sun, the eternal dance of growth continuing under his watchful care. In a few hours, when the heat becomes too intense for human comfort, the garden will rest in its own ancient patience, sustained by this morning's careful attention, waiting for evening's reprieve and tomorrow's gentle dawn. The monastery bell chimes softly in the distance, calling the brothers to morning prayer, and Thomas walks slowly back toward the stone corridors, his work complete until the blessed coolness of dusk returns. The August sun hangs heavy over the monastery walls, casting long shadows across the flagstone paths that wind between raised beds bursting with the final abundance of summer. Brother Thomas moves slowly through the herb garden, his weathered hands brushing against the silvery leaves of lavender, releasing clouds of fragrant oil into the warm morning air. The preserving time has arrived, that sacred season when the monastery must capture and hold the very essence of summer's gifts for the long winter months ahead. In the corner of the garden where the medicinal herbs grow tallest, Brother Thomas kneels beside towering stalks of comfrey, their broad leaves reaching toward his shoulders like green prayers. He cuts each stem with deliberate care, listening to the soft whisper of blade through plant fiber, a sound that speaks of generations of monks who have performed this same ritual in this same place. The cut stems release a green, earthy perfume that mingles with the drone of bees working the nearby hyssop flowers, their ancient partnership continuing unchanged by human purpose. The monastery kitchen has been transformed into a workshop of preservation, its stone walls lined with bundles of herbs hanging from wooden beams like botanical chandeliers. Brother Marcus tends the great hearth where copper kettles simmer with tinctures, their contents bubbling gently as alcohol draws the healing properties from dried roots and leaves. Steam rises from each vessel, carrying with it the concentrated essence of chamomile, valerian, and elderflower, filling the vaulted space with an atmosphere so rich it seems you could reach out and gather handfuls of summer itself. At the long oak table that dominates the kitchen center, 3 younger monks work in comfortable silence, their fingers moving with practiced precision as they strip leaves from woody stems. Brother Francis holds a sprig of rosemary up to the light filtering through the narrow window, examining each needle-like leaf for signs of disease or damage before adding it to the growing pile of perfect specimens. The discarded stems will find their way to the monastery's fires, where they'll release their fragrance one final time as they burn, blessing even the act of their disposal. The seed-saving corner of the kitchen tells its own story of faith in tomorrow's garden. Glass jars line wooden shelves, each one carefully labeled in Brother Thomas's precise script with the names of varieties that have grown in this soil for centuries. He shakes a dried poppy head, listening to the tiny seeds rattle inside like promises whispered in a secret language. These small, dark grains carry within them the memory of every summer that has blessed this garden, the genetic wisdom of countless seasons of growth and harvest. Outside, the drying racks stretch across the monastery's covered cloister, their wooden frames laden with bundles of mint, sage, and thyme that rustle softly in the afternoon breeze. The monks have arranged them with the same attention to beauty that they bring to their prayers, each bundle spaced to allow air to circulate freely, each herb grouped with others that share its needs. The visual rhythm of green and silver, of broadleaf and narrow, creates a living tapestry that speaks of abundance carefully tended and wisely preserved. Brother Thomas pauses in his work to examine a handful of calendula petals, their orange and gold faces still bright despite hours of drying in the warm air. These flowers will become healing salves for the winter months, their sunny color a reminder of August days when snow covers the garden paths and the greenhouse windows fog with condensation. He tucks the petals carefully into a linen sack, adding them to the growing collection of remedies that will carry the monastery's community through the darker seasons. The afternoon sun slants lower now, painting the stone walls with amber light as the monks continue their ancient work. In the distillation room, Brother Paul tends the copper still where lavender oil separates drop by precious drop from the steam of boiling water and flowers. Each golden droplet carries the concentrated essence of a dozen plants, the very soul of summer captured in liquid form. The process requires patience and attention, virtues that monastery life cultivates as surely as the garden cultivates its herbs. As evening approaches and the Angelus bell calls the community to prayer, the preserving work continues by candlelight. The kitchen fills with the soft sounds of chopping, stirring, and the gentle bubble of simmering preparations. Tomorrow will bring more of the same patient labor, and the day after, until every worthy plant has been given its chance at preservation, every seed saved for next year's hope. The monastery sleeps tonight surrounded by the fruits of its careful labor, the very walls infused with the gathered essence of summer's gifts. In the darkness, the drying herbs continue their slow transformation from fresh green life to concentrated wisdom, ready to share their healing properties when the garden lies dormant under winter snow. The late afternoon sun slants golden through the monastery garden, casting long shadows that speak of summer's gentle retreat. Brother Thomas moves slowly between the flower beds, his weathered hands cradling a wicker basket that holds the promise of seasons yet to come. The air carries that particular warmth of late August, thick with the drowsy hum of bees and the sweet fragrance of flowers that bloom as if they know their time is precious. Purple asters nod their daisy-like faces in the breeze, clusters of tiny petals radiating from golden centers like miniature suns. Brother Thomas pauses beside them, watching as a painted lady butterfly alights delicately on the nearest bloom. Her orange and black wings flutter once, twice, then fold as she drinks deeply from the flower's heart. These late butterflies seem to move with a different quality than their spring cousins' less urgency, more deliberation, as if they too understand that each moment of nectar is a gift to be savored. The goldenrod stands tall along the garden's eastern border, its plumes of yellow flowers swaying like wheat in an unseen wind. Brother Thomas had planted these natives years ago, drawn to their humble beauty and their generosity to the small creatures of the garden. Now, in the slanting light, they glow as if lit from within, their golden heads alive with the gentle movements of tiny insects gathering the season's last abundant feast. He kneels beside a patch of late roses, their second flush of blooms smaller but no less lovely than their June glory. These September roses carry a different fragrance, deeper, more complex, touched with the wisdom of a flower that has weathered the full heat of summer. Their petals are softer now, more delicate, dropping at the slightest touch to carpet the dark earth beneath. Brother Thomas cups one bloom in his palm, breathing in its perfume, feeling the velvet texture of petals that seem to hold all the warmth of the passing season. A honeybee moves from flower to flower with drowsy purpose, her movements slower than the frantic energy of spring. Her legs are heavy with pollen, golden baskets that she carries back to the hive like tiny offerings of the garden's abundance. Brother Thomas watches her work with the same quiet attention he brings to his prayers, seeing in her dedication a mirror of his own daily rituals of tending and care. The deadheading begins as it always does, with a moment of gratitude for each flower that has given its beauty to the world. His fingers work gently, removing spent blooms with the tenderness of someone handling sacred objects. Each faded flower head drops into his basket, not as waste, but as completion, the natural end of a cycle that began months ago with the planting of seeds and the first tentative shoots of spring. Among the cosmos, their feathery foliage now touched with yellow at the tips, Brother Thomas finds seed heads ready for harvest. He rolls the dried petals between his fingers, feeling the small, dark seeds scatter into his palm. Each one carries within it the potential for next year's garden, for blooms that will color future summers. He places them carefully in small paper envelopes, writing the date and variety in his careful script, thinking ahead to the spring sowing that feels both distant and surprisingly near. A monarch butterfly drifts through the garden like a moving flower, its orange wings carrying it from one late bloom to another. Brother Thomas knows this may be one of the last he sees this year, these grand travelers already beginning their mysterious journey south. He pauses in his work to watch its flight, marveling at the ancient pattern that calls these delicate creatures across impossible distances to places they have never seen. The evening light grows softer, painting the garden in shades of amber and rose. Shadows lengthen across the gravel paths, and somewhere in the monastery bells chime the hour for vespers. But Brother Thomas remains a moment longer among his flowers, his basket now full of seeds and spent blooms, his heart full of the quiet satisfaction that comes from work done with love. As he finally turns toward the monastery buildings, the late summer garden settles into evening behind him. The asters and goldenrod will bloom for weeks yet, the roses will offer their fragrance to the cooling air, and the seeds in his basket will rest through winter, waiting for spring's call to begin the cycle anew. In this eternal rhythm of bloom and seed, growth and rest, Brother Thomas finds the same peace that fills his prayers, a quiet trust in the turning of seasons and the patient unfolding of time. The September moon hangs full and golden above the monastery walls, casting everything in its warm, honey-colored light. Brother Thomas steps quietly from the stone dormitory, his leather sandals making barely a whisper against the worn cobblestones as he makes his way toward the garden. The air carries that particular crispness that speaks of autumn's arrival, not yet cold, but touched with the promise of frost that could come any morning now. He pauses at the garden gate, letting his eyes adjust to the interplay of moonlight and shadow. The familiar rows of vegetables seem transformed under this celestial lantern, each plant casting intricate patterns on the earth between them. The tomato vines, heavy with their final offering, appear almost ethereal in the silver-gold glow, their leaves rustling softly in the gentle night breeze that carries the scent of ripening fruit and dying summer flowers. Brother Thomas lifts his woven basket from its hook beside the gate and begins his nocturnal harvest. The tomatoes come away easily in his weathered hands, some warm from the day's sunshine still trapped in their red skin, others cool with night dew already beginning to form. Each one finds its place in the basket with a soft, settling sound, like whispered prayers joining the evening's quiet chorus. The monastery bells have long since marked compline, the final prayers of the day, and now the world belongs to different sounds. An owl calls from the ancient oak that stands sentinel at the garden's edge, its voice low and melodious in the stillness. Somewhere in the distance, a night bird answers with its own gentle song. The fountain in the cloister continues its eternal murmur, water meeting stone in an endless, soothing rhythm that has marked the hours here for centuries. As Brother Thomas moves between the rows, his shadow stretches and shifts with his movements, sometimes appearing to dance among the plants like a silent partner in this midnight ballet. The pepper plants hold their colorful treasures, deep red bells, golden crescents, and dark purple teardrops, each variety waiting patiently for his gentle touch. He cradles each pepper as carefully as he would hold a prayer book, acknowledging the miracle of seed becoming sustenance, of earth and rain and sunshine transformed into nourishment for his brothers. The cucumber vines have given their last, but the winter squash still rest like sleeping cats among their broad leaves, not quite ready for gathering. Brother Thomas runs his hand along their smooth surfaces, feeling for the subtle signs that will tell him when their time has come. The moonlight plays across the ridged skin of the acorn squash, highlighting each curve and valley in the gentle illumination. A bat flickers overhead, its erratic flight pattern weaving between the fruit trees that border the vegetable garden. Brother Thomas watches its silent hunt with the same peaceful attention he brings to his prayers, recognizing the sacred in this small creature's determination to sustain itself before winter's arrival. Everything in the garden, he reflects, follows its own divine timing, the plants offering their gifts, the creatures preparing for the season ahead, the earth itself beginning its slow turn toward rest. The work continues in this meditative rhythm. Fill the basket, empty it into the larger collection baskets near the garden shed, return to the rows. His hands know this work so well that his mind is free to wander through gratitude for the abundance of this year's harvest, for the steady rhythm of seasons that marks the monastery's year, for the privilege of this quiet labor under the watchful moon. As he works among the herb garden's final offerings, the air becomes rich with the concentrated essence of basil and oregano, sage and thyme. These scents, released by his gentle brushing against the plants, create an invisible incense that rises into the cool night air. The rosemary, hardy enough to survive the coming cold, releases its piney fragrance as he passes, a promise that some green things will remain through winter's sleep. Near the garden's eastern wall, where the first light of dawn will eventually appear, the last of the summer flowers nod in the gentle breeze. The marigolds, faithful guardians of the vegetable rose, glow like small suns in the moonlight. Tomorrow they will succumb to frost, but tonight they maintain their vigil, their spicy scent mingling with the earthier aromas of the ripening harvest. Brother Thomas straightens slowly, feeling the good tiredness that comes from honest labor. His baskets are full, the last vulnerable crops safely gathered before nature claims them back. Above him, the harvest moon continues its slow journey across the star-scattered sky, blessing this quiet work with its ancient light. The garden sleeps peacefully around him, ready now for autumn's deeper rest, and Brother Thomas offers a silent prayer of thanksgiving for this sacred hour when heaven and earth seem to touch in the gentle dance of moonlight and shadow. The morning mist clings to the monastery orchard like a gentle veil, transforming the apple trees into shadowy guardians heavy with their autumn treasure. Brother Thomas moves between the rows with the quiet reverence of one who has witnessed 30 such harvests, his weathered hands already knowing which branches will yield their sweetest gifts today. The air carries that distinctive perfume of ripening fruit, a heady mixture of honey and earth that seems to emanate from the very soul of the orchard itself. Young Brother Benedict follows closely behind, his eager steps creating soft impressions in the dew-dampened grass. His wicker basket bumps gently against his hip with each stride, empty now, but soon to be filled with the monastery's liquid sunshine captured in apple form. The older monk pauses beneath a particularly laden tree, its branches drooping so low they nearly kiss the ground, and raises his hand in a gesture that speaks of patience learned through decades of seasonal rhythms. "Listen first," Brother Thomas whispers, though his voice carries easily in the cathedral quiet of the orchard. "Each apple will tell you its readiness." He demonstrates by cupping his palm beneath a ruby-red specimen, feeling its weight without yet disturbing its connection to the branch. The fruit gives slightly under the gentlest pressure, and when he lifts it skyward, it releases with the softest whisper, nature's own blessing upon the harvest. The younger monks spread throughout the orchard like worker bees, each carrying their woven baskets and cloth satchels. Brother Marcus, barely past his 20th year, stands on his tiptoes beneath a towering tree, stretching toward apples that gleam like jewels against the pale morning sky. His movements are careful, deliberate, remembering the lessons about honoring each piece of fruit as a gift from the divine. When an apple drops into his waiting palm, he brings it close to his nose, inhaling the complex sweetness that promises months of sustenance ahead. Brother Thomas demonstrates the ancient art of selection, running his thumb along each apple's surface to detect the subtle signs of perfect ripeness. Some fruits still cling stubbornly to summer, their skin too firm, their stems unwilling to part from the maternal branch. These he leaves for another day, another week, trusting in the wisdom of natural timing. Others practically leap into his hands, their golden green skin blushing with streaks of crimson, their fragrance so intense it seems to create its own atmosphere around each perfect specimen. The harvest rhythm develops gradually, like a meditation made manifest through physical labor. Reach, assess, pluck, place, each motion flowing into the next with increasing grace. The baskets grow heavy with rounded treasure, some apples destined for the evening meal, others marked by Brother Thomas's experienced eye for the long sleep of winter storage. He sorts them as he picks, the firmest and most unblemished going into special cloth-lined containers that will journey to the root cellar's cool embrace. As the sun climbs higher, burning away the morning mist, the true beauty of the orchard reveals itself. Row upon row of ancient trees, some planted by monks who have long since returned to dust, their gnarled branches telling stories of countless seasons, countless harvests, countless moments of quiet gratitude exactly like this one. The grass beneath their feet grows thick with fallen leaves in shades of amber and gold, creating a natural carpet that cushions each footstep and releases the green scent of autumn with every movement. Brother Benedict discovers a tree whose lower branches have been stripped by earlier harvesters, but whose upper reaches still hold clusters of perfect fruit. Brother Thomas produces a wooden ladder, worn smooth by generations of hands, and demonstrates the careful choreography of elevated picking. Each movement must be deliberate, respectful of both the tree's ancient wisdom and the precious cargo being gathered. The young monk ascends with reverent slowness, his basket secured to his belt by a length of braided rope. From his elevated perch, Brother Benedict can see across the entire monastery grounds, the chapel spire catching early sunlight, the herb garden still emerald despite autumn's advance, the fish pond reflecting clouds like a mirror set into the earth itself. But it is the orchard that captures his heart completely, this living testament to the patient partnership between human care and divine abundance. Each tree stands as a prayer made manifest, each apple a small miracle of transformation from blossom to sustenance. The morning's work continues in peaceful silence, broken only by the gentle thud of fruit dropping into baskets, the whisper of robes moving through grass, and the occasional murmur of appreciation when someone discovers a particularly perfect specimen. This is harvest not as labor but as communion, each monk participating in an ancient ritual that connects them to the eternal cycles of growth, abundance, and grateful gathering that have sustained human communities since time immemorial. The October morning arrives wrapped in mist, soft and silver, clinging to the stone walls of the monastery like a gentle blessing. Brother Thomas pushes open the wooden gate to the garden, its hinges singing their familiar song, and steps into a world transformed. Overnight, it seems, autumn has painted every corner with her brush, turning the humble monastery garden into something that takes his breath away. The maples that stand sentinel along the garden's eastern border have burst into flame, not the harsh fire of destruction, but the warm glow of amber and gold, their leaves catching the early light like stained glass windows. Each leaf hangs perfect and still in the windless morning, as if the trees themselves are holding their breath, reluctant to let go of summer's last gift. Brother Thomas pauses beneath their canopy, listening to the soft whisper of leaves that occasionally release their hold and spiral down, landing with the faintest rustle on the path. His footsteps are muffled by the carpet of fallen leaves as he makes his way toward the herb garden. The basil plants, once green and vigorous, now wear crowns of tiny white flowers, their leaves beginning to yellow at the edges. He moves slowly, methodically, his weathered hands selecting the best sprigs for drying, their fragrance still strong and peppery in the cool air. The sage has turned a silvery purple, its fuzzy leaves soft beneath his touch, while the thyme spreads in low mounds of deep green dotted with the last brave purple blooms. Along the garden's stone walls, the climbing roses have shed most of their petals, but their hips glow like tiny lanterns, scarlet and orange orbs that will provide winter sustenance for the birds. Brother Thomas touches one gently, feeling its firm roundness, knowing these small treasures will remain long after the snow covers the garden paths. The morning glory vines that scaled the trellis all summer now hang in brown tangles, but scattered among the dying leaves are a few late blooms, their purple trumpets open to catch the slanting sunlight. The vegetable garden tells its own story of the changing season. The tomato plants, once heavy with fruit, now bear only a few green stragglers that will never ripen. Brother Thomas picks them carefully, knowing Sister Marie will find use for them in the kitchen, perhaps in the green tomato relish she makes each fall. The pumpkin vines sprawl across their patch like sleeping dragons, their orange treasures scattered among the yellowing leaves. 3 perfect pumpkins rest there, their surfaces smooth and unblemished, waiting to grace the refectory table. An oak tree beyond the garden wall drops an acorn with a soft thud, then another, nature's quiet percussion in the morning stillness. Brother Thomas looks up to see a squirrel perched on a branch, its tail twitching as it surveys the bounty below. The creature seems in no hurry, content to sit in the dappled light that filters through the golden leaves. Everything moves slowly in October, as if the world itself has learned the value of pause, of quiet contemplation. Near the garden center, where the stone bench sits beneath the old pear tree, Brother Thomas kneels and begins gathering leaves, not randomly, but with the careful attention he brings to all his work. A maple leaf, its surface a perfect gradient from green to gold to deep amber. An oak leaf, broad and strong, painted in shades of rust and brown. A delicate birch leaf, small and bright yellow, like a coin dropped by some passing fairy. He arranges them carefully in his wicker basket, knowing that later, in the quiet of his cell, he will press them between the pages of the garden journal. Each leaf will become a bookmark marking the passage of time, a reminder of this October morning when the world seemed held in perfect balance between the abundance of summer and the rest of winter. The bell tower chimes 7 times, its bronze voice carrying across the garden and beyond, but Brother Thomas does not hurry. There is something about October that demands slowness, that asks for attention to be paid to each moment, each breath, each small beauty that will soon be gone. He continues his gentle work, moving through the paths like a prayer made visible, his presence as much a part of this garden as the trees themselves. A light breeze stirs, setting the leaves above him into gentle motion, and for a moment the air is filled with falling gold, maple leaves spinning down like benedictions, oak leaves drifting like thoughts too beautiful for words. Brother Thomas stands among them, his face turned upward, letting the autumn morning wash over him like grace itself, knowing that moments like this are why gardens exist, why hands tend the earth, why hearts open to the endless gift of each passing season. The November air carries the scent of wood smoke and damp earth as Brother Thomas makes his way through the monastery garden in the early morning light. Frost has kissed the last of the marigolds, their golden petals now edged with crystalline white, and the bare branches of the apple trees stretch toward a pale gray sky. This is the season of preparation, of gentle closing, of tucking the garden safely beneath winter's protective blanket. His breath forms small clouds in the crisp air as he kneels beside the lavender beds, their silver-green foliage still fragrant despite the approaching cold. With careful hands, he begins to gather armfuls of fallen leaves, oak and maple in shades of amber and rust, spreading them in thick layers around the base of each plant. The leaves crackle softly as he works, their earthy perfume mixing with the lingering sweetness of the herbs beneath. This mulch will be their winter coat, protecting tender roots from the harsh freeze that will surely come. The wheelbarrow squeaks gently as he pushes it along the gravel path, loaded with more leaves gathered from beneath the ancient oak that stands sentinel at the garden's heart. Each pile he creates is deliberate, thoughtful, not too thick to smother, not too thin to fail in its purpose. The rose bushes receive their share, their thorny canes already pruned back to sturdy stems that will weather the coming storms. Even in dormancy, they hold the promise of June's first blooms, and Brother Thomas tends them with the same devotion he shows the most delicate seedling. Near the stone wall where the espalier pear trees grow, he unrolls lengths of burlap with the slow precision of a sacred ritual. The young trees, trained against the sun-warmed stone throughout the summer months, need protection from the bitter winds that sweep across the valley in January and February. He wraps each trunk carefully, securing the fabric with twine that he ties in neat, even knots. His fingers, roughened by years of garden work, move with practiced grace, each motion economical and sure. The tool shed stands open, its weathered wooden door creaking softly in the breeze. Inside, Brother Thomas methodically cleans each implement that has served him through the growing season. The spade that broke ground for the spring lettuce receives a thorough scrubbing with an old brush, removing every trace of soil from its blade. He oils the metal to prevent rust, running his thumb along the smooth surface with satisfaction. The pruning shears are sharpened one final time, their edges keen and bright, before being wrapped in cloth and placed on their designated shelf. Row by row, he makes his way through the vegetable garden, pulling the last of the carrots from earth that yields them reluctantly, their orange forms sweet with the cold that has concentrated their sugars. The root cellar will keep them fresh through the darkest months, just as it will preserve the potatoes and turnips already stored in wooden bins lined with straw. Each harvest is a gift received with gratitude, the culmination of months of patient tending and trust in the ancient rhythms of seed and season. The greenhouse windows fog with warmth as he steps inside to tend the plants that will overwinter in this protected space. Geraniums rest in terracotta pots along the wooden benches, their growth slowed but their green leaves still vibrant. He waters them sparingly, knowing that too much moisture in the cool air could invite disease. The silence here is profound, broken only by the gentle drip of condensation and the whisper of his robes against the narrow aisles. As the short November day begins to fade, Brother Thomas stands at the garden's center, surrounded by his careful preparations. The compost bins are covered with wooden lids to keep the decomposing leaves and kitchen scraps working through the winter. The rain barrels are drained and turned upside down to prevent cracking when water freezes within them. Even the bird baths have been emptied and stored, though he has left shallow dishes of fresh water for the creatures who will remain through the cold months. The monastery bells begin their evening call to vespers, their bronze voices carrying across the valley with the same steady rhythm that has marked the hours here for centuries. Brother Thomas removes his wool cap and bows his head for a moment of gratitude, for the season's abundance, for the garden's faithful response to his care, for the quiet satisfaction of work well done. Tomorrow will bring new tasks, but tonight the garden rests, prepared and protected, ready to dream through winter toward the distant promise of spring. The morning light filters through November's gray veil as Brother Thomas makes his way along the ancient stone walls of the monastery garden. His weathered hands carry the familiar weight of his pruning shears, their metal surface cool against his palms in the crisp autumn air. The frost has kissed most of the garden into dormancy, but there, climbing against the warm southern wall, a few miraculous roses continue their quiet rebellion against winter's approach. These are the last roses of the year, their petals soft as whispered prayers, their colors muted but somehow more precious for their rarity. Deep burgundy blooms nestle beside pale pink ones, their faces turned toward whatever weak sun manages to pierce the morning clouds. Brother Thomas pauses before them, breathing in their sweet fragrance, a perfume that seems to carry within it the memory of every rose that has bloomed here through decades of seasons past. The monastery walls behind these hardy climbers have witnessed countless autumns, their stones worn smooth by centuries of weather and time. Built by hands long since returned to dust, they stand as silent guardians over the garden's rhythms, absorbing the day's warmth to release it slowly through the cool nights. This is why the roses linger here, sheltered and sustained by stones that remember summer's heat even as November settles around them like a gentle, inevitable embrace. Brother Thomas reaches for the first bloom, a deep red rose whose outer petals have begun to curl at their edges, showing the first signs of time's passage. His fingers work with practiced gentleness, cutting the stem at just the right angle, leaving enough length for the chapel vase while ensuring the bush's strength for next year's growth. The thorns catch occasionally at his rough brown sleeves, but he moves with the patience of one who has learned that all beautiful things require careful handling. The fragrance of each cut rose seems to intensify in the cool air, as if the flowers are releasing their essence one final time before surrendering to winter's call. Brother Thomas gathers them slowly, cradling each bloom in the crook of his arm like precious relics. Some are fully opened, their layers of petals revealing hearts of gold and cream. Others remain partly closed, holding their secrets close, their potential still wrapped in velvet promise. As he works, the brother finds himself remembering roses from years past, the climbing rose that bloomed so profusely in the summer of the great drought, the bush rose that survived the harshest winter in living memory, the new variety that Brother Benedict had planted with such hope before his passing 3 springs ago. Each flower connects him to this endless cycle of growth and rest, of abundance and preparation, of holding on and letting go. The monastery bell tower chimes the hour, its bronze voice carrying across the garden and beyond, marking time with the same steady rhythm it has kept for centuries. Brother Thomas looks up from his work, watching his breath form small clouds in the cool air. Soon, these walls will be bare of color, the garden beds covered with fallen leaves, the fountain's water stilled by frost. But for now, in this suspended moment between seasons, beauty persists in these last brave blooms. He turns his attention to the pruning that must be done, his shears moving with deliberate care along each rose cane. Years of experience guide his hands as he removes the spent blooms, cuts away the weak growth, and shapes each bush for winter's rest. This is not destruction but preparation, not ending but beginning. Each careful cut ensures that come spring, new growth will emerge strong and healthy, ready to begin another year of patient blooming. The pruned canes fall to the ground with soft whispers, joining the carpet of fallen leaves that cushions his footsteps. Brother Thomas gathers these as well, knowing they will find new purpose in the compost pile, their essence eventually returning to nourish the very roses from which they came. Nothing in the monastery garden is truly lost, only transformed, moving through endless cycles of growth and return. As the morning progresses and his basket fills with the season's final roses, Brother Thomas feels the deep satisfaction that comes from working in harmony with nature's rhythms. These flowers will grace the chapel altar through the weekend, their perfume rising with the incense, their beauty offering silent testimony to the divine presence that moves through all growing things. The last rose cut, he steps back to survey his work. The bushes stand neat and ready, their thorny canes reaching toward the gray sky like patient hands in prayer. Against the monastery's ancient stones, they seem to hold within them the promise of spring's return, the certainty that what appears to end is merely resting, gathering strength for renewal's sweet arrival. The first snowflakes begin their gentle descent in the hour before dawn, each one a tiny messenger of winter's arrival. Brother Thomas awakens to the profound silence that only fresh snow can bring, a hushed stillness that seems to wrap the monastery in cotton wool, muffling even the familiar sounds of morning prayers echoing from the chapel. He dresses slowly in the pre-dawn darkness, pulling on his heaviest woolen robes and the thick leather boots he reserves for winter walks. The stone floors of his cell are cold beneath his feet, but there is something comforting about winter's honest chill, the way it reminds him of life's essential simplicities. When Brother Thomas steps into the cloister, his breath forms small clouds in the frigid air. The arched walkways frame a world transformed where yesterday there were neat rows of dormant herb beds and carefully pruned fruit trees. Now there stretches an unbroken expanse of white, pristine and unmarked save for the delicate tracks of a few early birds searching for breakfast. The snow continues to fall in large, lazy flakes that seem to drift rather than fall, each one taking its time to find its perfect resting place. Some settle on the bare branches of the apple trees, outlining every twig in white lace. Others gather in the stone birdbath, filling it with a soft mound that sparkles faintly in the growing light. Brother Thomas walks slowly along the main garden path, his footsteps the first to break the snow's perfect surface. Each step makes a soft, satisfying crunch that seems almost musical in the morning stillness. He pauses frequently, not to hurry his inspection, but to simply witness this moment of transformation, the garden he has tended so carefully through spring's awakening, summer's abundance, and autumn's harvest, now resting peacefully beneath winter's protective blanket. The herb beds are barely visible now, marked only by the small wooden stakes he placed there in November to remember where each variety sleeps. The rosemary and thyme, hardy souls that they are, show a few brave green tips poking through the snow, while the more tender herbs have withdrawn completely underground, trusting in the earth's warmth to carry them through to spring. He moves toward the vegetable garden, where the raised beds create gentle hills and valleys in the white landscape. The Brussels sprouts stand like miniature palm trees, their thick stalks crowned with snow, while the winter cabbages hunker down in their neat rows, their outer leaves forming perfect cups for the gathering flakes. Brother Thomas brushes snow from one of the cold frames, peering through the frosted glass at the winter lettuce growing slowly but steadily inside. The plants seem almost to glow with green life in their protected environment, a reminder that even in winter's depths, growth continues, patient and persistent. The monastery bells begin their call to morning prayer, but Brother Thomas allows himself a few more moments in this winter cathedral. The snow has draped the garden walls in white, softening their harsh stone edges. The bare branches of the pear trees create intricate patterns against the pale sky, like ancient calligraphy written in wood and snow. A small robin appears on the garden gate, its red breast bright as a tiny flame against the monochrome morning. It regards Brother Thomas with curious, bright eyes before flying to the feeding station he maintains throughout the winter months. The bird's presence reminds him that the garden, even in its winter sleep, continues to provide sanctuary and sustenance. As the snowfall gradually lessens, Brother Thomas completes his gentle circuit of the paths. Everything is as it should be: the tender plants safely mulched, the trees properly pruned, the garden structures sound and ready for winter's wait. This is the rhythm he has learned to love, the active months of planting and tending, followed by these quiet months of rest and reflection. The growing light reveals how the snow has settled into every corner and crevice of the garden, creating a landscape both familiar and utterly new. The sundial wears a perfect white cap, its bronze face hidden until spring returns. The stone bench where he often sits in warmer months has become a gentle white mound, inviting only in its pristine beauty. Brother Thomas turns back toward the monastery, his inspection complete, his heart full of winter's peculiar peace. Behind him, the garden settles deeper into its snowy dream, each plant and tree surrendering to the season's embrace. The snow continues to fall, gentle and unhurried, adding layer upon layer to the white coverlet that will protect and nourish the sleeping earth until the wheel of seasons turns once more towards spring's inevitable return. In the growing light of day, the monastery garden rests in perfect silence, beautiful in its simplicity, peaceful in its patient waiting. The monastery bells have long since fallen silent for the night, their bronze voices resting until the call to lauds still hours away. Brother Thomas walks slowly across the frozen courtyard, his breath forming small clouds that dissolve quickly in the crisp December air. Each footstep crunches softly against the thin layer of snow that settled during evening prayers, and overhead, the winter stars shine with a clarity that only comes on the longest nights of the year. Tonight is the solstice, when darkness holds dominion over the earth for its fullest measure, before the ancient promise of returning light begins once more. Brother Thomas has walked this path for 37 winters, yet each solstice still fills him with a quiet sense of reverence, as if he is witnessing something both deeply familiar and eternally mysterious. The greenhouse stands before him like a gentle beacon, its glass panels catching the moonlight and holding it softly. He lifts the old iron latch with careful fingers, feeling the metal's bite of cold through his woolen gloves. The door opens with the slightest creak, and immediately he steps into another world entirely. The air here carries the green scent of growing things, warmer and somehow thicker than the sharp winter night he has left behind. Brother Thomas lights the oil lamp that hangs near the entrance, and golden light spreads through the small sanctuary he has tended all these years. The flame dances gently, casting moving shadows across the rows of terracotta pots and wooden shelves that line the greenhouse walls. Even in winter's depths, life persists here in quiet defiance of the season's harsh decree. He moves first to the rosemary, its needle-like leaves still green and aromatic despite the cold that presses against the glass walls. As he brushes his fingers along the woody stems, the herb releases its familiar fragrance into the lamplight, sharp and clean and somehow ancient. This particular plant has grown here for 7 years now, its roots deep in the rich monastery earth, its branches pruned and shaped by countless gentle touches. The sage grows nearby, its soft gray-green leaves dusted with the finest coating of moisture from the greenhouse's breath. Brother Thomas checks the soil with practiced fingers, finding it still damp but not waterlogged. These herbs ask for so little, yet give so much in return. Through summer's abundance and autumn's preparations, they have provided medicine for the infirmary, seasonings for the simple meals shared in the refectory, and fragrant offerings for the altar during feast days. He carries a small clay watering vessel, moving between the plants with the unhurried rhythm of long practice. Each pour of water creates a soft pattering sound as it meets the earth, like gentle rain on leaves. The sound mingles with the almost inaudible whisper of his breathing and the distant sigh of wind moving through the monastery's stone corridors. In the corner, a cluster of hardy thyme still shows signs of life, its tiny leaves holding fast to their delicate branches. Brother Thomas remembers planting these particular seedlings in early spring, when the earth was just beginning to warm and the promise of growing things felt fresh and urgent. Now, in the depth of winter, they seem to hold a different kind of promise, the patience of things that endure, that wait, that trust in the turning of seasons they cannot see but somehow know. The lamplight flickers slightly as a gentle draft moves through the greenhouse, and Brother Thomas adjusts the wick with steady hands. The increased light reveals more of his green companions, a few stalks of parsley maintaining their bright color, some chives that have retreated to their roots but still show the faintest green tips, and along the back wall, containers of seeds waiting for spring's call to awakening. As he tends to each plant, Brother Thomas finds himself settling into the profound quiet that only comes in the deepest hours of night. There is something about this solstice darkness that makes even ordinary tasks feel touched with mystery. Perhaps it is the knowledge that tonight, in this very hour, the earth begins its subtle turn toward longer days. Perhaps it is simply the peace that comes from caring for growing things when the world outside lies dormant under winter's spell. He completes his rounds slowly, checking each plant, adjusting their positions slightly to catch tomorrow's precious winter sunlight, ensuring that their small needs are met. When all is done, he stands quietly in the center of the greenhouse, surrounded by these faithful companions who have accompanied him through another year's cycle of planting, growing, harvesting, and now enduring. The lamp flame burns steadily, casting its warm circle of light in this sanctuary of green. Outside, the longest night continues its ancient watch, but here among the rosemary and sage, among the patient herbs that trust in tomorrow's light, Brother Thomas feels the deep contentment that comes from witnessing life's quiet persistence through all seasons, through all turning of days and years, through the endless, gentle mystery of growth and renewal. The winter library holds a special quietude that Brother Thomas has come to treasure. Tall windows frame the January landscape, snow-dusted gardens sleeping beneath their white blanket, bare fruit trees sketching delicate patterns against the pearl-gray sky. The ancient stone walls seem to embrace the silence, creating a sanctuary where time moves like honey, slow and golden. Brother Thomas settles at the long oak table, its surface worn smooth by centuries of contemplative study. Before him spread the season's collection of seed catalogs, their colorful covers promising summer abundance, heirloom tomatoes glowing like jewels, sunflowers turning their faces toward warmth, beans climbing skyward in emerald spirals. The pages rustle softly as he turns them, each whisper a quiet conversation with possibility. The monastery's garden journal lies open beside the catalogs, its leather binding creased with years of faithful recording. Brother Thomas traces his finger down columns of careful notes when the lettuce bolted, which corner of the herb garden received too much shade, how the soil responded to last autumn's compost. These observations become the foundation for dreams, the careful architecture of hope. Young Brother Marcus arrives with the measured footsteps that mark the monastery's rhythm. His enthusiasm for the garden has bloomed throughout the autumn months, and now winter's planting season draws him like a bee to lavender. He carries a steaming cup of chamomile tea, its gentle fragrance mingling with the library's scent of aged paper and beeswax candles. The pear trees look so peaceful in their dormancy, Brother Marcus observes, settling beside his mentor. His voice carries the soft reverence that winter gardens inspire. It's hard to imagine them heavy with fruit come September. Brother Thomas nods, turning to a page filled with fruit tree varieties. Planning teaches us to see time as the gardener does. He explains, his weathered hands steady as he makes notes in the margin. We plant in spring for autumn's harvest. We rest beds in winter for summer's abundance. Each season serves the others. Together, they spread large sheets of paper across the table, creating maps of the coming year's garden. Brother Thomas sketches the raised beds with sure strokes, marking paths between them, noting which areas catch the morning sun, which corners remain cool and moist throughout the day. His drawings become landscapes of intention, each line purposeful as a prayer. The north beds were too shaded for peppers last year, Brother Marcus recalls, consulting the journal. Perhaps we could try the shade-loving greens there instead, the Asian mustards and winter lettuces that prefer cooler conditions. Brother Thomas smiles at his students' growing understanding. You're learning to listen to what the garden tells us. The earth has its preferences, its natural inclinations. Our role is to work with these tendencies, not against them. They plan the rotation of crops with the methodical care of astronomers charting celestial movements. Legumes will follow heavy feeders, their roots enriching soil depleted by hungry tomatoes and squash. Cover crops will rest between seasons, their green manure preparing beds for future plantings. The garden becomes a living calendar, each plot marking time's passage through growth and renewal. The afternoon light shifts subtly through the tall windows, casting longer shadows across their planning papers. Brother Marcus discovers dwarf fruit trees in one catalog, compact varieties perfect for the monastery's smaller courtyard spaces. His excitement is quiet but unmistakable, the gentle animation of someone discovering new possibilities within familiar boundaries. Imagine apple trees espaliered against the south wall, he whispers, as if speaking too loudly might break the spell of planning. The blossoms in spring, the fruit ripening in autumn sun. Brother Thomas watches his young companion with deep satisfaction. This sharing of knowledge feels as natural as seeds taking root in prepared soil. Mark those varieties, he suggests. We'll write to the nursery come February when the snow begins its slow retreat. As evening approaches, they organize their plans into neat stacks, seed orders sorted by planting dates, garden diagrams labeled with careful precision, lists of desired improvements written in Brother Thomas's measured script. The work feels complete without being finished, like a garden bed prepared for spring's inevitable arrival. The library grows dim around them, shadows gathering in corners where afternoon light once pooled. Brother Thomas closes the final catalog with gentle ceremony, knowing that these winter hours of planning hold their own sacred purpose. In the quiet space between seasons, intention takes root, growing strong in darkness before emerging into light. Outside the windows, snow continues to blanket the sleeping garden, protecting the soil where next year's abundance already waits, patient as prayer, certain as sunrise. The February morning air carries a different quality now, something Brother Thomas notices as he steps from the monastery into the hushed garden. The cold still bites at his cheeks, and frost still glazes the stone pathways with silver, but there is something new in the silence, a subtle stirring, like the earth itself is beginning to breathe again after its long winter sleep. He pulls his woolen cloak closer and walks slowly along the familiar paths, his footsteps muffled by patches of snow that cling to the shadowed corners of the walls. The garden sleeps still, wrapped in winter's quiet embrace, but Thomas has learned to read the gentle signs that speak of change approaching on soft, invisible wings. Near the ancient apple tree that stands sentinel at the garden's heart, he pauses and draws closer to examine its bare branches. Here, where just weeks ago the wood seemed as lifeless as carved stone, tiny buds have begun to swell. They are barely noticeable to an untrained eye, small, green-tinged bumps along the dark bark, but to Thomas they shine like promises. He touches one gently with his fingertip, feeling the firm roundness that holds within it all the potential of spring's return. The pear trees show similar signs, their buds slightly more pointed, catching the pale morning light like tiny candles waiting to be lit. Thomas moves between them slowly, his breath forming small clouds in the cold air as he whispers a prayer of gratitude for these first whispers of renewal. Each tree stands patient in its winter coat, but beneath the stillness, life is stirring, preparing for the great awakening that will come with warmer days. Along the monastery's southern wall, where the stone holds and radiates whatever warmth the weak February sun can offer, something catches his eye, a splash of purple so vibrant it seems to glow against the white snow. Thomas kneels carefully, his knees crackling slightly in the cold, and pushes aside the snow with gentle hands to reveal the miracle beneath. 3 small crocuses have pushed their way through the frozen earth, their petals unfurled like tiny chalices reaching toward the sky. Their purple is deep and rich, the color of twilight or monastery wine, and at their hearts, bright orange stamens stand like miniature flames. Thomas sits back on his heels, overwhelmed by the courage of these small flowers, blooming while snow still blankets most of the garden. He remains there for long minutes, watching as the strengthening daylight plays across the crocus petals, making them seem to shimmer with an inner light. Around them, the snow shows the faintest signs of retreat, small patches where the earth shows through, dark and rich with the promise of growth to come. Rising slowly, Thomas continues his morning survey, noting how the hellebores near the chapel steps are showing fresh green shoots, and how the bare branches of the forsythia bush seem to hold a subtle golden undertone, as if preparing to burst into the bright yellow blooms that will herald spring's true arrival. In the herb garden, still mostly hidden beneath straw mulch and patches of snow, he can see the first pale green tips of chives pushing through, and the gray-green rosettes of lavender plants showing new growth at their centers. Even the compost pile, that humble foundation of all the garden's abundance, steams slightly in the morning air, alive with the slow, patient work of decomposition that will feed another season's growth. The silence around him is profound, but it is no longer the deep, complete quiet of winter's heart. Now it holds expectancy, like the held breath before a song begins. Thomas can almost hear it, the subtle shifting of sap beginning to rise, the gentle expansion of buds preparing to burst, the soft stirring of insects beginning to wake from their winter rest. As he completes his circuit and returns to the monastery door, Thomas carries with him the gentle joy of these first signs. Spring is still weeks away, and there will be more snow, more frost, more gray days when winter seems to tighten its grip once more. But the crocuses have spoken their truth, and the buds have made their promise, and in the eternal cycle that governs all growing things, hope has begun its quiet return. He pauses at the threshold, looking back at the garden one more time. In just a few months, this same space will be alive with color and fragrance, busy with bees and bright with blossoms. The seeds that rest dormant in the cold soil will wake and stretch toward the sun. The bare branches will clothe themselves in green, and the silence will give way to the gentle symphony of another growing season. For now, though, there is peace in this moment between seasons, in these small signs of promise scattered like gifts throughout the sleeping garden, waiting patiently for their time to bloom. Brother Thomas stands at the edge of the monastery garden as the first light of March dawn touches the earth. His weathered hands rest gently on the wooden gate, fingers tracing the smooth grooves worn by countless seasons of opening and closing, welcoming and tending. The air carries that unmistakable scent of awakening soil, rich and loamy, mixed with the faintest promise of budding life stirring beneath winter's fading embrace. A full year has passed since he first stood in this very spot, watching the early spring emerge from winter's long sleep. Now, as another March unfolds before him, he feels the profound satisfaction that comes only to those who have witnessed the complete turning of nature's wheel. The garden spreads before him like an old friend returning home, familiar yet somehow renewed, carrying the wisdom of seasons lived and seasons yet to come. The herb beds that once lay dormant under snow now show the tender green tips of chives pushing through the dark earth. Lavender bushes, pruned back in late autumn, display the first hints of silvery new growth along their woody stems. The rosemary, hardy and faithful through winter's trials, stands tall and fragrant, its needle-like leaves catching dewdrops that sparkle like tiny prisms in the growing light. Brother Thomas walks slowly along the gravel path, his footsteps creating a gentle rhythm that seems to match the quiet breathing of the garden itself. Each step brings memories of the year just past, the explosion of spring growth, the abundant summer harvest, the golden peace of autumn, and winter's contemplative rest. All of it has led to this moment, this return to the beginning that is somehow also a new beginning. The apple trees stand bare but expectant, their branches reaching skyward with an almost prayerful grace. If he looks closely, Brother Thomas can see the tiny swellings where buds are forming, preparing for the magnificent display of blossoms that will come in just a few short weeks. The memory of last year's harvest still lingers in his mind, baskets full of rosy fruit, the sweet scent of apple butter cooking in the monastery kitchen, the careful selection of the finest specimens for winter storage. Near the stone wall, the perennial bed shows signs of resurrection. Delicate shoots of peonies pierce the mulch, their reddish stems bold against the dark earth. The hostas are still sleeping, but he knows that soon their tightly furled leaves will unfold like scrolls revealing ancient wisdom. Purple crocuses have already pushed through near the sundial, their cup-shaped blooms closed now in the early morning chill, waiting for the sun's warmth to coax them open. Brother Thomas kneels beside the vegetable beds, running his fingers through the soil. It feels different now than it did a year ago, richer, more alive, mellowed by months of compost and careful tending. This earth has been blessed by the cycle of seasons, enriched by fallen leaves and the patient work of countless earthworms. It holds within it the promise of another year's abundance. The monastery bells chime softly in the distance, calling the brothers to morning prayers. But Brother Thomas allows himself a few more moments in this sacred space, this outdoor cathedral where he has learned to read the subtle language of growing things. The garden has taught him patience, shown him the beauty of surrender, revealed the deep satisfaction that comes from working in harmony with natural rhythms. A robin lands on the sundial, its breast bright orange-red in the strengthening light. It cocks its head, listening perhaps for the sounds of worms moving through the warming earth. This is the same species that nested in the climbing rose last summer, though Brother Thomas cannot know if this is the same bird. It doesn't matter. The robin represents continuity, the endless cycle of life that makes each ending a beginning. As he rises to his feet, Brother Thomas feels the weight of the year's wisdom settling gently in his heart. He has learned that gardening is not about controlling nature, but about joining the ancient dance between seed and soil, rain and sun, growth and rest. Each season has brought its gifts: spring's hope, summer's abundance, autumn's gratitude, winter's contemplation, and now the wheel turns again. The sun climbs higher, warming his face and hands. Soon he will be working in shirt sleeves again, preparing beds, sowing seeds, transplanting seedlings. The greenhouse holds trays of tomato starts and pepper plants, waiting for the soil to warm. The tool shed is ready with spades and hoes, watering cans and trugs, all the implements of hope and faith that gardeners carry. Brother Thomas opens the garden gate one more time, stepping through into another year of seasons and silence, growth and grace. The cycle is complete, and yet it is also just beginning. In this perfect paradox, he finds peace.